Hey folks, welcome back to the Empower podcast then. The show hosted by a guy who still can't shrimp properly, but somehow manages to get some world-class athletes to talk to him anyway. So today we're joined by Sean Coates, BJJ Black Belt, multiple-time world medalist, basically the human equivalent of a grappling cheat code. However, I'm still pulling hamstrings, tying my belt, so we'll see how that goes. It's going to be a good interview, I'm sure. Sean's got more titles than I've got excuses for skipping a leg day. He's a 3-time IBJJF World Medalist. He's an 8-time British champion, ADCC UK Pro Champ, and I'm the proud owner of the most enthusiastic certificate from a kids' martial arts seminar that I jumped onto. So we're going to talk about his journey, the grind to black belt, mindset, what it takes to step into competitions, getting his black belt, and yeah, we're going to get into it. It's going to be fun, I'm sure. So Sean, thanks for joining me, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, glad to be on. I watched Alien's episode. So buzzing to be on myself.
Awesome, yeah. That kid is going to be a bit of a wonder, isn't he, I think? He already is. But yeah, it's going to be cool. Yeah. Perfect. It's pretty cliche then, but we're going to start with how you got started in BJJ. So what was your first class like? How did you discover Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? And what kind of drew you in, I suppose, into doing that sport?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I first got started, it's quite complicated. I had a long route to BJJ. So when I was 6 years old, my dad wanted to put me in some martial arts. He wanted to put me into boxing.
Okay.
My mum was very much against boxing. She didn't want me to get punched and everything. So he'd heard about a competition that had happened in the USA. He'd heard about a competition between all martial arts and that jiu-jitsu had won. Like looking back, that competition that he'd actually heard about was UFC 1.
Yeah.
And the jiu-jitsu that had won was Brazilian jiu-jitsu with Royce Gracie. He didn't quite understand that at the time. So he just heard jiu-jitsu. He didn't understand the difference between Japanese jiu-jitsu, which is more of a traditional martial art linked to judo, some similarity between that and Aikido, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is sort of the evolution from Japanese jiu-jitsu to judo to BJJ. So he put me into jiu-jitsu, and that type of jiu-jitsu was Japanese jiu-jitsu, and I trained Japanese jiu-jitsu until from 1998 to about 2010. Towards the end, there was some crossover between that and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and then in 2010, I just fully crossed over to Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So by the point that I did my first class in BJJ, I'd already done my club. Luckily, I've done seminars with Royce Gracie in 2001, and some other good jiu-jitsu guys as well. And I think a Brazilian guy stayed with us and trained with us for a month, 2005 or something like that. So I'd seen BJJ. And I had some basic grappling moves, more like judo style grappling moves. So my first class was a surprising experience, but not as surprising as I would say most people, because I'd done a bit of grappling first.
Sure, yeah. And was that crossover quite easy then for you? Or was it still a bit of a, oh my God, this is a different kettle of fish really, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, 100% was still, 100%. I mean, I was a black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu, and my level in BJJ would be equivalent of, it's hard to translate, but I was, the blue belts were mashing me up, but I didn't know nothing. I knew a triangle, I knew an armbar, I knew a rear naked choke. I wouldn't know what half guard is or any more specific than that. So I had a few moves and I was scrappy. So I could do I never experienced the part which a lot of people have, which is in the first could be 2 to 6 months. You're just getting obliterated every class. I wasn't doing that. I was getting dominated. Anybody that's half decent was just rinsing me. But if they were clueless, I would do okay. So I was probably a 2 or 3 stripe white belt. So I got to skip the very hardest part, if you like. But even then, I was, but as I say, a black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu, but when it came to BJJ, the blue belts were just ripped through me, So it was, obviously I stuck a white belt back on, and it was basically starting from scratch, Sure. If it was climbing a mountain, I was starting 10 steps in, but that's about
it. Yeah. When you started training, did people know you were a a jiu-jitsu black belt?
I think so. I don't think I'd say that much about it. which is what I'd advise other people to, because it's better off, walking in. Exactly, yeah. Exactly. Well, it's better off walking in having a bit of skill and surprising people than it is walking in saying, "Hey guys, I'm a Japanese jiu-jitsu black belt. I'm going to smash everybody," and then I just get messed up. So so I would say if somebody is in that scenario, I wouldn't broadcast it too much, and I just really try and come in with an attitude of you're there to learn and get ready to relearn stuff that you might already think you learn, you think you know.
Yeah, 100%. When did you think then, like, this is for me? This is going to become more of a hobby and less of a recreational thing. I'm going to kind of put everything into it. Was it fairly early on, or did it take a little bit of time to get used to and readjust yourself?
No.
Straight from the start,
Yeah.
this is for me.
No, it wasn't early on at all. No. It took me age. I mean, it's funny because I did martial arts from the age of 6.
Yeah.
As I say, like 1998, and then I went full time when I was like 21, something like that. But the whole time before then, I never thought I'd do martial arts as my job, like at any point. So I was just sort of cruising through. I went to school, went to uni. I was training in a lot of uni, and I suppose the tipping point for me was I was a blue belt in BJJ, and I was training less and less often. I sort of got a girlfriend. I got a bit distracted. I was training less. I was at university. I was training like maybe 2 times a week, probably once. And then the guys that were doing, and then every holiday I would like not really train properly. And then the guys that I was a little bit better than, they started catching me up and then overtaking me.
Right.
And I just thought to myself, this is like, I didn't like that. And then also I was trying to do competitions as well. And I was just getting rinsed in competitions. Like, I remember when I first got my blue belt, I lost I think it was 6 consecutive competitions, first round losses. So every one of them submission as well. And I remember I got like 4 in, and I thought to myself, this is insane. Like let's say I've entered 3 competitions, I've lost first round every single time by submission. And I just thought, I've got to do something about this. So I've got to start training more. And then I started taking it seriously. So I started training like 6 days a week, really pushed myself, did that for months, like doing gym. Like my main focus, I was still at uni, but my main focus was jiu-jitsu. And then I entered another competition. I improved loads, and then I still lost first round.
Yeah. And
then I did like another 2 months. I was like, I've got loads better. And then the same thing happened again. And then at this point, I was like, right, this one, I'm either flipping winning this competition, or I'm just going to quit jiu-jitsu. Right. It was just all or nothing at that point. And then I went to the competition, and then I got tapped again first round. So,
oh, no.
Yeah. That was number 6. But luckily, that competition had a repechage system, so you get to fight again.
Right.
And you go to like a loser's bracket where you can potentially win bronze. And then there's this photo of me that somebody else posted. I'm just on this sports hall, my hands up the head, like in the background. Like, what am I doing? And they called my name for like the losers fight, the repechage fight. And I was like, and I just walked in there and I got an armbar on the guy, and he was like the worst armbar ever. I was pulling his arm into my groin. I was like hurting myself. My leg was in the wrong position. I was hurting myself. I was like, I don't care. And then the guy tapped, and I've never been happy to win a fight. And then I went on to win bronze like after a couple more fights. And then so what was happening basically then is I was finally getting the reward for training more, but it was a delayed effect. You can't train loads more and just expect to get results immediately. It's still going to take time. You don't even have to go to the extreme of training 6 times a week, but it takes time to get those results. And then finally, from then it started catching up, and then from there things start to build. Yeah,
perfect. Were you always quite competitive then? Was it always like an interest for you to compete and kind of go that route?
It was, yeah, definitely. Because I'd done. That was my main motivation of doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Because Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, it was quite hard to compete back then.
Sure.
I did one competition in. This is going to make me sound old. I did one competition in, I want to say like 2002, a Japanese Jiu-Jitsu competition, and it was sort of like kids MMA basically. We wearing gis, we got boxing gloves and shin pads and foot guard, like foot protectors on, and we're doing like strikes, standing, takedowns, and then when you start grappling, then you can no longer strike, and that was basically the rules of it. But in the game, and those competitions were few and far between. It became like harder and harder to find them. I was aware that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu had a big competitive element, and I could even go online, and I was even considering at one point just entering a BJJ competition. So I was definitely interested in that side of things. I don't really know why. I just thought it'd be like a fun thing to do. And then so I've definitely always been interested in the competitive element of it, which most people don't start BJJ for that reason. Definitely always interested in that side.
Yeah, definitely. Like for most martial arts, I'd say whether it's kickboxing, MMA, maybe BJJ, jiu-jitsu, anything like that, it's always like the minority, really, isn't it, that are going to go into the competition.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your one percenters that want to go that route. Most are looking
Absolutely.
recreationally, looking for fitness, health, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But if you went in there with
Yeah,
that competitive mindset already, do you think I gave you a bit of an advantage?
potentially, yeah. Potentially it did. I mean, like, the good thing about doing competitions, let's say, I'll talk about total, I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe 2% of people there are full-time competitors, maybe 3%, something like that. And that's insanely high. Like, if
yeah, yeah.
anything, it might be more, let's say 3 or 4%, man. That's insane. That's like, we've got the highest percentage of competitors of any gym in the UK by miles. And then, so that's their job, to be a competitor. But then, like, most people that do competitions are just they train in the evenings or they train after work, and then they'll do a competition,
Mhm.
when they can. But it's not their job to do competitions. So some guys competed last weekend, some guys will be competing in a few weekends at the British Open and stuff.
Yeah.
And I still recommend doing competitions, even if it's not your job, even if you're not a competitor. So let's say somebody like yourself who's training consistently, pushing themselves. I think competitions are a fantastic thing because, yeah, maybe you don't want to go to the adult world championships. You want to build that level up, start regional, build up towards national. But they're a great thing to do because it really, one, gives you a target of your training. So it focuses you towards something. You've got a clear set goal. I need to be in this level of shape. I need to understand my game a little bit more. I need to have a clear A game. I need to work on my weaknesses. So it's pushing you towards it. And then the best thing about it is either you win and it motivates you to do it again, or you lose and hopefully it motivates you to do it again.
Motivation. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And then by that losing as well, the great thing about losing a competition is it's so painful. Right? It's I say it's a great thing because you're so much more likely to correct the mistake you've done in competition
Yeah,
because it's in front of people. You're under pressure. I can remember mistakes that I made 10 years ago in competition.
sure.
Whereas I can't remember mistakes that I made 3 days ago in training. So it really, and that's how you're going to get better as you. So you make a mistake, you correct it, you move on. You make a different mistake, you correct it, you move on. And you want that cycle to be as small as possible. You don't have to make the same mistake 20 times in a row. So I'm a big fan of people doing competitions, even if it's just recreationally, every few months or a couple of times a year or whatever it is, just to keep some sort of drive towards a goal and as a way to highlight any errors that you're currently making that you might not be fully conscious of.
Yeah, 100%. That makes sense. Yeah. So at this point, then, so you've started BJJ. You've come in as kind of the equivalent of a 2-3 step white belt. You're getting smashed around. You're slowly starting to progress a little bit. You're going into comps. When did you first receive your blue belt then? Because that's kind of like the first mark, really, I suppose, isn't it? You got the belt change. You kind of go, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer a white belt. Nice. Still getting smashed,
Yeah.
but nice. It's a step up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I actually got my blue belt really fast because
Cool.
as I say, I was a bit better. So I got my blue belt in like 10 months
Yeah.
of training. At that point, I went. I did the transition that everyone does, where you go from being king of the white belts, where you're the best white belt there,
Yeah.
you're the king of these guys, to the bottom of the pile of blue belts, and that's the harshest one because blue belt's such a big range. It's probably the biggest range of the coloured belts, much more so than purple and brown, and because there's only a few belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's the one where you really, white belt, you're learning what jiu-jitsu is and the basic hierarchy of positions and like just the basic broad scope fundamentals plus a few main techniques, really. And if you're good at that, if you have something to do from each position, you've done well at white belt.
Mm-hmm.
At blue belt is when you're going to learn the bulk of your technical knowledge.
Right.
So that's when you're going to acquire the most technical information, acquire the most amount of techniques. Purple belt, you continue to do that. And then what happens then, purple, brown, and black, you're still learning techniques, but they become, you learn less and less techniques and more improvements on techniques or more
Right.
refinement.
So you're not just
By
collecting
the time
technique.
you've got, exactly, yeah, exactly. By the time you look at, let's say, a black belt that's been a black belt for a few years, you're probably not going to see a move that's like where you think that is nothing like I've ever seen before. Normally, it's a variation, something, or a modification, or an improvement, or the blending of two things, or you find the connection between one thing to another thing. Whereas at blue belt, you will often learn things that you've never ever seen before. So
Sure.
that's why it's the biggest range. So when I got my blue belt, I went from being king of the white belts to the bottom of the pile of blue belts because there's such a large range of blue belts there, and that's painful for a lot of people. We get a lot of people quit. It's called like blue beltitis, is what people call it.
Right.
But it's when you get your blue belt and then people quit. And the reason for that is one, you've gone, as I say, you've gone from being the big dog the little dog, but also number two is it's sort of the anticlimax of the goal. Like you've got a very clear set goal. You've been getting better and better and better, and closer and closer and closer to this goal of blue belt. Then you get the blue belt, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I've actually done it now. And you sort of take the foot off the gas. Like nobody's quitting at 4-star white belt. I'll put it that way. Nobody's quitting there. It's just not happening. Whereas loads of people will feel like, got my blue belt now, you know, like you feel demotivated because now you compare yourself to blue belts and all of them are more experienced than you. And then on top of it, you've just completed the big goal that you've been working towards, and purple belt seems a mile away, which it is. And that's a difficult time for a lot of people. And that's what just after then is when I had the experience that I just spoke about earlier, where I lost like 4 things in a row. So really, you know, I would say don't worry too much about the belts. That's the best thing you can. If I was going to give anybody advice, maybe it applies to all martial arts, but for sure in BJJ, because it takes so long in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to get your black belt, don't even worry about it. Just try and do a little bit better than you did last session. And that's it. If you do that, you've done good. If you're getting tapped 6 times around by somebody, try and get tapped 5 times next time. Don't even think about black belt. Don't even think about that. And I would say don't even think about your next belt. If you're just progressively doing a bit better, hopefully what should happen is in 6 months' time, you should look back and think, look at that. In 6 months ago, wow, I'm way better than I was back then. I would smash me back then. So in 6 months' time, where can you go? So if you can switch your long-term perspective as soon as possible, that's the best thing. I have periods where, you know, I've been in like a funk, not doing as well as I would hope to do for like 6 months, you know. And I think probably when I was a white belt, if I had got that, I would have quit. But you've got to try and step back and just see that perspective that you could. You know, sometimes you do better, sometimes you do worse, but hopefully overall, you're building your way up. And hopefully overall, you're doing better.
The trend's going up. Yeah, definitely. As a coach, then, how do you kind of impart that to your students? Because you said about the the blue belt kind of problem of people quitting and things. Do you have this conversation with your blue belts? Are you like saying, you know, this is maybe something that you're gonna feel as you reach the blue belt, like just keep pushing through, or is it kind of an unspoken cultural thing?
Yeah, it is for sure cultural things. Like as I say, that's why they call it blue beltitis. But I would say often when they're getting the blue belt, just as sort of like a little warning of what's going to happen. And that's when the first drop off is like 90% of people probably going to drop off in the first couple of months or first 6 months, right? Because they had some sort of mental impression of themselves that was much greater than it actually is.
Sure.
So I'm going to slag off those people now, but it's the reality of it. Most people think, they're listening to Joe Rogan, think, jiu-jitsu's tough. Oh yeah, I can do tough things. You just got to push through training for years. Yeah, and it just builds mental resilience. Yeah, I'm the sort of person that can do that. And then it gets a couple of months in, and it's not easy. Jiu-jitsu is tough. The reason it builds mental resilience is because it's flipping not easy. You're doing a physical challenge and a mental challenge all at the same time. Not everything's going to happen all at once, and it takes time to build up that skill. So they get a couple of months in, and all of a sudden, they start making excuses for themselves. And that's the other thing. Like most people quit. But if you ask why most people quit, most people will say it is because I got injured. It is because my job got busy. It's because I started doing this other thing. That's a load of rubbish. Like everyone's going to get injured. You never get a black belt. Everyone's going to have something busy going on at work. Everyone's going to have some sort of home life thing going on. If you want to get a black belt, as I say, let's say it takes you 10 years. At some point in that 10-year period, something else is going to happen. That's impossible, right? It's that you use that other thing as an excuse rather than being a little bit injured and working around it, or training, talking to your partners. You just quit. Or rather than getting a little bit injured and taking a bit of time off and then coming back when you felt better, you just quit. You use that as an excuse. So they wanted an excuse to quit. So that's 90% of people. Then the biggest portion of the drop off, like the other, let's say the next 7 or 8%, would be having just after blue belt.
Yes.
And then the rest of it, they just trickle off later on. You still do get a drop off then. That's what I say, to mentally prepare yourself for that and really just focus on yourself. The goal hasn't changed. When you get your blue belt, the goal hasn't changed at all. The goal was never to get your black belt. Right? If there was no grading system in jiu-jitsu, it's not like it would change anything. Not really. The same people would be good. The same people would have quit. That's a mark, and that's sort of your reward as you go along. But the goal of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to get good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's the goal. So try and just clear that belt from your mind. and just focus on yourself getting better. That's the best thing you can do long term. Now, if you want a little short term like hack to get through that, where it might be difficult to think in such a long term way. For a little short term hack, what you can do is just think, I've got no pressure. I'm the lowest blue belt here. This is like when I started. Like, I've got no pressure. If I do anything on any of this better blue belt than me, I've done well. You know what I mean? Like, you can see getting a new belt. You got a choice. Whenever you get a new belt, you can think to yourself, wow. Say if I get a purple belt, I think, oh no, now the blue belt's going to try and be trying to mess me up. You know, I've got a target in my life. Or you can think, sweet, I've just got my purple belt. If I do well against any purple belt, then that's amazing. They're expected to beat me. They're expected to tap me out. If I do anything, that's great. I've got no pressure at all. Same with going to competitions. I've just got my purple. People say that all the time as an excuse to not compete. They say, well, I've just got my blue belt, so I want to get a bit better at blue belt and then I compete.
Yeah.
But let's say you've been a blue belt for 4 years. Well, actually, you're going to have loads of pressure on yourself. And you think, oh, no, I'm in blue belt for 4 years. Everyone expects me to win. Actually, if you've just been blue belt, nobody expects you to win. That's the best time to compete ever. You know what I mean? There's no loss there.
Yeah.
So I'd say alter your perspective to that as soon as possible. And hopefully it'll serve you well to push through that difficult period.
Perfect. Yeah. Who were your main kind of grappling influences then when you were training at this point? So you were kind of blue belt, purple belt level. Who were you looking up to? Who were you learning from? And how did it go with that?
The main person was my instructor, the guy that got all my belts from. That would be Victor Estima.
Yeah.
So he was the guy that ran GB Nottingham, which is the club that Total is now.
Yeah.
And he was the main guy. He was a black belt, really elite level black belt.
Yeah.
Top guy. So he's the guy that sort of I came up under in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But before him in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, it was a guy called Rob and James Sheehan. They were father and son. And they're actually both black belts in BJJ now as well.
Oh, cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then also when I was at uni, I trained at a place called Stealth. A guy called Steve Campbell, a good black belt there as well. But for the majority of it, all the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it would be Victor. And he also did seminars at my Japanese Jiu-Jitsu club, so that's how I
Oh, cool. Nice, excellent. What was it like then receiving that black belt? I know we've kind of skipped through a couple of steps of purple and brown and things like that, but obviously BJJ is one of those martial arts that's kept its respect for the black belt, and I don't think that can be said for every martial art now, where it's kind of like, 2-3 years you can have your black belt or things like that. But BJJ, hopefully, and it will continue in the future, it's always got that kind of, okay, you're legit. If you've got a BJJ black belt, you know some shit. You're legit. So it must have been a nice moment for you, obviously competing, things like that, but then also just having that moment of going, oh, cool, right, I've got presented my black belt by Victor Estima as well, one of the best competitors in the world. Obviously, Braulio as well is amazing. So, the brothers, I suppose. So, that must have been a cool moment for you.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's mad to think, if I cast my mind back to when I was a white belt, I was looking at, or even a blue belt or anything, the black belts were they might as well have been aliens or something. I was never even picturing myself as those guys. When I was white belt, I was never even thinking of myself as a purple belt. I just thought, man, it's sick to be a blue belt. And that's about it. Those are the big dogs, So to be a black belt is sort of surreal, to be fair. I remember just looking down and just thinking, this is crazy. I'm a black belt now. So that was a great moment, a really sort of a really special moment. And it's it's coming to fruition of so much time and effort spent doing that. And just going back to what you said there, I really do hope, and I really believe in that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu keeping the integrity of the belt system, because that's something that really attracted me to BJJ, is that in a lot of other martial arts, everybody was a black belt, or the majority of people were black belts, but I knew it was ultra rare or ultra difficult to get a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like right now at Total, we've got 2 black belts. That's a massive school. So it's a tiny percentage of all the people training, because most people drop off. So I really hope the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu keeps its integrity belt-wise, and I really believe in that myself.
Yeah.
I won't give anybody a belt full. That's one of the things that I said when we sort of set up Total, and one of the ideology that we wanted behind it. And I wanted to make it more difficult to get a black belt, more difficult to get every belt. So that way, when you have it, that not only is it difficult to get a belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but it's even more difficult at Total.
It's like
so when you do get it, exactly, yeah. When you do get it, you've got some belief behind it. So you could go to competition and do well. You could train with somebody else that's also got a belt and do well. And when you actually do get it, you 100% deserve it. There's no other sort of political reason behind it. It's not because, I want you to get, you to get a black belt so you can be an instructor, so that'll help me out, so then
Sure.
I don't have to teach as much or anything like that at all. I really don't care. There's purple belts at Nottingham, there's blue belts in Total that will just that would rinse, I think you'd be surprised this, rinse black belts at other schools. And I don't mean rinse like purple belts, I mean rinse the head instructor of other schools.
Mm.
And I believe in that because that sets a standard for us that's higher than everybody else. I think over time, one, that'll draw people in, and number two, that's what I want for myself. I wouldn't want to be given a belt where I thought, do I really deserve this? I'm a bit shy about actually showing this to anybody. I want to get something where I've actually earned it. So that's the way I would want to treat everybody else. And over time, the people, and maybe this has already happened probably, the people that wouldn't like that, the people that want a belt for status, they will go. Yeah. Whereas the people that actually want a belt because they've not want a belt, not even want a belt, they just want to get to that level. They want to earn it.
It's almost incidental.
Exactly, yeah. And they want to know that when they do get given that belt, they legitimately deserve it, no matter how hard it is. They will stay. And I didn't want, to be honest, if anybody does leave because they want the belt for the status reason, I'm happy to see them go. Great, that's fantastic. Sure. That's not the sort of person that I really want at Total. Now, if you want to train, that's fine, crack on, but it's just, you can't do it here. That's what I'd say. Because ultimately, I believe those people are going to quit anyway. Ultimately, I don't believe those people are going to be the best standard that they can be. So it's a natural filtering process. You know what I mean? So it's not like, so I think as long as we stick to that, that's the main thing. So I'm a big, big believer in the integrity of the belt. And if that means that, let's say, I don't know, we've got a brown belt teaching a class, right? Whereas another school might have a black belt teaching a class. That's a price I'll pay because I know that brown belt is flipping. I'll give you an example of Oscar, right? Teaching classes. Oscar's a brown belt, but he's one of the best brown belts in the whole world. He would be one of the best black belts in the country. I could put a black belt on him now. He would be one of the best black belts in the country.
Yeah.
But he'll get his black belt the day he is a really, really good black belt because he's got that level of potential. Yeah. He's already an elite brown belt. He'll get it when he's an elite black belt.
Yeah.
Right? So it means that to the outside world that maybe don't know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we've got a brown belt that teaches some of your classes, whereas we have, 20 black belts. Well, I don't care because those black belts would get absolutely destroyed like hilariously. So I would be able to hold back Oscar. I'd be like standing in the middle saying, don't even spar with this guy. You know what I mean? Because he's such a different level to them. So I'm a big believer in integrity. I think that's something that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that drew me to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. At the very start, and I think that's something we should be keeping even more. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is in a great place. The standard of belts is much higher than other martial arts. Yes. I think we should be pushing that, super vigilant on what's happening with the belt system as well, because it could easily, you might be looking at this 5 years time, and what's happened is either it's all degraded over time, or what's happened is this is what I suspect. It'll be more about where you get the belt from. Yeah. So in the same way, if you've got a degree off some online course, that I set up, it probably doesn't mean as much as getting an actual PhD from Oxford or something like that. Yeah. So I think that's what might happen over time. If that does happen, we're going to be Oxford for sure.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good mentality to have, and I think, as you say, I think that's what sets you apart from it a little bit as well. The fact that you've got so many competitors, and the fact that standard is so high.
I agree. And one thing I will say about that as well is, when you've hit the nail on the head there, as I say, most people aren't full-time competitors, nowhere near 95% are, but everyone's good. And that's what I want, is I want everyone, if they, let's say you've got a guy that's a brown belt, he is heavyweight, he's, 48 years old, like the guy, and then we've got loads of those, I want that guy to know that if he goes against another brown belt that's a heavyweight that's 48 years old, that he's better than him.
No issue.
So it's not that everyone's got to be a full-time competitor. It's just that it just so happens that the very best guys we have are the absolute very best guys there are. Yeah. But then below that, the casual guys that we have are the very best casual guys we have. And the standard for the whole club is sometimes you see just that famous level at the top because everyone will get medals at the big international comps, like Worlds and Europeans and stuff. But actually, it's throughout the whole gym. I really believe in everybody's level, all the gym. And let's say if somebody's thinking, I'm not bothered about being a competitor or anything, I would still want to go to Total because that's the truth for most people. Most people aren't competitors. It's just that for whatever they are, a hobbyist, somebody who's just trying to get in shape, they are the best version of that. And that's what I believe in. I believe in the whole standard, the whole club, whether you're a little kid training, whether you're just a guy just trying to train once a week to get in a bit better shape. Every single one of them should be the best version they can possibly be.
100%. How do you put that across then in kind of your processes and your classes? Because obviously for people that haven't trained that before, you start your beginner course, don't you, which runs for, say, 6, 7, 8 weeks, however long. Then you get tested, is that correct? And then after that, if you pass, then you can go into like your advanced class. So there's almost a test right at the start, which is kind of rare. I haven't seen that in many gyms before. So I've trained in a couple of other BJJ gyms and things in the past, and it hasn't been that same. There've been beginner courses maybe, but there's never been like a, oh, and it's almost a, oh, okay, there's a test at the end. All right, wicked, let's go. So, So, was that something that you implemented or?
It 100% was, yeah. There's 100% something we implemented. I'm not going to give away too many of the secrets. The school owner sees this, but I will tell some of the broad elements to it. So, we've got a proper beginner's course. Like it's sort of overpacked. It doesn't really make sense to business perspective at all to do this course, because you get the uniform, you get minimum 8 weeks training, or however long it takes you to pass the course. If it takes you 2 months, if it takes you 6 months, it's all paid for. So it's like 145 quid for the uniform, months of training, and we have like 10 sessions every week. So that's like an insane amount. It doesn't really make sense, that side of it. Not that anybody does 10 sessions a week. I mean, 10 options to train that week. So we've got loads of choice there. But yeah, we believe in the test side of it, because it's sort of doing what I was speaking about before about competitions. He's giving a clear target towards something. So the main thing about the test element is that there's a clear goal that you're building towards, and you get rewarded for trying your best. And then rather than just saying you're going to do jiu-jitsu until whenever, it's like, right, after 8 weeks, you are going to do your test. Okay? And then at that 8 week point, I won't go into what the test involves, but it involves loads of different elements, loads of different elements of jiu-jitsu. So, and it's very difficult. So, but it gives you a clear target. And then the vast majority of people don't pass the first time. Like I've got the stats, the vast majority of people do not pass first time, but they're allowed to retake the test. So then it could be like 2 to 4 weeks, let's say 3 or 4, so 3 period, and then you can retake it. And then the good thing about that is we're giving feedback along the way. So if someone doesn't pass the test, here's why, go back and improve, go back and improve, go back and improve. So it's not like a pass, fail. It's more like, you can see it more like a driver's test. That you haven't passed yet, and here is why. And often the best people that we have aren't the people that pass first time. The people that pass first time are often, they've got a bit of skill background, that they've already trained, they're quite maybe gifted athletically or some other reason, and they pass first time. The people that do the best, and the people that I like to see the most, are the people that fail 4 times and still take the 5th one. That's the people that I really like, because I think, flipping out, you've just started and you've got this level of resilience. You know what I mean? You've just done 8 weeks, and then you failed, and you failed again and again and again and again, and you just keep coming back, and each time you're doing a bit better. You're the sort of person that'll be a black belt, because that's exactly what jiu-jitsu is like. So it's a natural filtration system, and that's why we really believe in it. Because one, it forces quality. It gives people a clear target. It gives people a clear aim, and gives them something to build towards. Number 2, it maintains the standard of the club as well, because the only people passing through, it's not based on time or anything at all. At all. So the people that filter through to the advanced classes, they are the standard that we would want. So they're sort of keeping a high standard there. And number 3, it filters out the sort of people that we don't want in there anyway. So it filters out the sort of people that, again, just want to be rewarded for just showing up. You know what I mean? The sort of people that actually they want it to be difficult, but they want to pass anyway. The sort of people that will fail 3 times and come back for 4th, 5th and 6th one. Those are the sort of people we want. So it's a great system that we really believe in. Now, does that make sense business-wise? No. because it obviously we don't make any money at all. Like, it costs, to give away so many classes, to give away so much training, to give away the flipping uniform, the insurance, every other element. Yeah, it don't make sense. And then also on top of that, you're putting off loads of people. You know what I mean? Like most other clubs would just be like, what are you doing? What are you doing failing so many people? Just pass them all, then you'll get loads of members. But we don't believe in that at all, and that's really not what Total's about. So it doesn't make sense from a business-wise, but I believe that the reason I wanted to do jiu-jitsu is because I like jiu-jitsu and I believe in it, and I like seeing people build up to their maximum potential. I like doing it myself, and I like coaching them. So that's what attracted me to jiu-jitsu. I didn't think when I started doing it, oh, this is the best thing ever for me to make loads of money. So it's very easy to lose sight of why you originally started it. So that's what I really want to stick to. And if it doesn't make the most business, if it's not the most business-minded decision ever, I can live with that. What I couldn't live with is sort of degrading the integrity of the main thing that I do in my life, which is total jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, perfect. I think you make a good point but I think long term it probably is a good business decision as well, because as you say, you're getting the right people in, and if you get the wrong people into a martial arts club, it's like the sourness kind of spreads, doesn't it? And then
That's true, yeah.
that thing's always going to be low. So you've set the bar low, but if you set the standard high, that's going to continue on. And then, even in 20, 30, 40 years, or whatever, total's going to continue. And you know that you're going to have amazing people running it, rather than it getting filtered down. So I think,
that is true, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point, yeah. Maybe it's more of a... Yeah,
short term, long term.
Yeah. That's probably the best way of saying it. Yeah, maybe it is a good move long term. Also, it enhances the reputation of the club.
Yeah.
Like you say, the people that we do go through the course and do pass, they're probably more likely to still be around in 10 years than than if we just accepted people through that were on the verge of quitting anyway.
Yeah.
So you're probably right, but in the short term,
sure,
not the best thing. But like you say, in the long term, it could be the best thing for us.
Yeah. Let's talk then a little bit about you turning professional then. So you said that it took a little bit of a while. What age did you kind of go, right, professional, I'm going to go for it, I'm going to go for a full-time academy? How did that work for you? And then what's the progression like now to Total BJJ and how you've done it?
So I would say this is the path that if I've got any sort of use in this world, it's either teaching jiu-jitsu or like helping other people do this path. But basically, it's difficult. It's a real pain in the arse because the problem with jiu-jitsu, you don't get any money from doing jiu-jitsu until you're already really good.
Right.
It takes a flipping long time to get really good at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So it's not like another job where you can learn on the job. Like you've already got to be good. So and that takes a lot of time. Because there's so much jiu-jitsu. So the way I got into it was, like I said before, I was losing all the time at blue belt. I started training loads more. I started training basically the maximum amount you can train without being full time. So let's say 6 days a week, a couple of hours a day, and then doing weights. I progressively got better and better. And then I started doing better, started getting better results. And then there was this place called Connection Rio, which is a really cool place. I wish it still existed. But it was a hostel in Rio. So in Rio de Janeiro, which was just for BJJ and MMA fighters. And they ran a sponsorship campaign. So people had to apply for sponsorship and they would pick a certain number of people and you could go there and train there and everything. And then I did the application and luckily I got it. Now, for me to accept the application, actually, it meant that I wasn't able to come back to university. So I wasn't able to come back for my third year of university. But I accepted it anyway, with my parents knowing. And I just went to Brazil for like 3 months. And that was sort of my taste, that was my trial. I knew when I was going there that I was going to give Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a proper go. I was going to try and go full time. I've been watching videos on it. There's this big team in the USA that have people that train full time. I knew that to become one of the things that this big team in the US would say was if the club you train at has nobody that's medaling at the World Championships, then you're probably not going to medal at the World Championships. So basically, you need to be around that sort of elite level, and same with training full time as well. So I knew that I needed to train full time, and I used going to Brazil as a little trial for that. So when I went there for 3 months, I was training like a couple of times a day. I was training basically full time, but because I had the sponsorship and because Brazil was insanely cheap, I could do it without having to work when I was over there.
Sure.
So I saved up some money before working at a pub. And then I got the sponsorship to go there, and then I would just pay for my food when I was out there. And just never eat out, just live really cheap. And luckily it was super
What
cheap.
level were you?
I was blue belt.
Blue.
So I was blue belt, yeah. And so it was sort of a big risk, because at that point I'd literally never won a competition, even a local level one. But I just thought, I can be good at this eventually. And then I got better from there. And then when I came back, that's when I started training full-time here in Nottingham. I was living in Sheffield, travelling back and forth. And again, earning zero money. So the first year and a half I learned not a penny from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But I would call myself, I'd say, if people ask me what I did, I'd say I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. But I didn't get any income from that at all. I worked at a pub, like 3 shifts a week, like the evenings, the weekends, and the evening, one midweek. And then I would do like casual like labouring work on a building site a couple of days a week. So I would do like, let's say 16 hours labouring, 20 to 30 hours in the pub, and then about 20 hours driving, and then about 20 hours BJJ.
Yeah.
And then about a couple more hours weights. So basically that's the whole time I'm awake, right? Yeah, as I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And then over time, after I medalled at the Worlds and I was purple belt, I started assisting some kids' classes. I started assisting like 2 kids' classes a week, and then started leading some kids' classes, and then beginners' classes, and then I started doing privates, and then I started doing the main classes, and then it just built up over the course of years to the point where when I was a black belt, then I was the main instructor, and I faded those other jobs down as I was like purple and brown belt. So by the time I was black belt, I was the main instructor, or like really one of the main instructors just before I took it over. So I was one of the main instructors, teaching advanced classes, teaching all the kids' classes, and doing a lot of private. So I was just living from jiu-jitsu at that point. But it was just a gradual period where I had a job. I had multiple jobs doing loads of jiu-jitsu but earning nothing, and I gradually faded down those jobs as I got income from BJJ.
Yeah, perfect. What was it like then setting up your first school?
Well, I didn't really set up Nottingham
Right.
Total. I sort of did in a way. I set up Total, but I didn't set up the club that pre-existed before that. So Total nowadays is what Gracie Bar Nottingham used to be.
Yeah.
So when I started travelling down to Nottingham from Sheffield, that was to Gracie Bar Nottingham at the time.
Okay.
And then, as I said, I became like one of the main instructors.
Yeah.
And then the other main instructor moved to Sheffield. He's called Gareth Neal, really good guy. And he set up a club there. And then I was the sort of lead instructor, like the person that taught the most in Nottingham. But the owner was still Victor. He was like the head instructor that oversaw everything.
Yeah.
But I would do like in the couple of years before he left, or the year before he left, I was teaching most of the classes. So I was one of the main black belt instructors basically, but not the owner. And then Victor moved to Portugal, and then we set up, we had some conversations about how it would work, and then basically we came to an agreement, like a deal of how I would then come to take over what is now Total. So then I was then the head instructor, and Gracie Bar Nottingham at the time, which is what it was my gym. So then I continued that, and then about a year ago we switched from Gracie Bar to doing our own thing, which is Total BJJ.
Perfect. What kind of elicited that switch? Was there a reason for it, or a few reasons?
Yeah, I suppose there's a few reasons. That, like, you can probably see. I won't go into super in depth on the reasons. You can read about them online if you search them yourself. I know some other people have done interviews as well where they talk about it in a lot more depth as well. Feel free to search those.
Okay.
I'm not going to be too controversial. The catalyst for it was basically it was a move to a franchise. So I can say that that's common knowledge. It was basically Gracie Bar in the US had moved to a franchise agreement, and then Gracie Bar in the UK moved to a franchise agreement. So yeah, that's all I'll say on that, because I've really got no hard feelings at all. I don't really come across as I'm sort of like Gracie Bar, I'm sort of bitter or anything like that, because it's just that there was a natural flow of things.
Sure.
Things have flowed this way. I've got no issues at all with what happened. It is what it is. It's completely fine. I'm not bitter towards Victor or anything. He's the guy that gave me all my belts and everything, and he's still within GB. Like, everything's all cool. There's some people that I'm friends with, like Jamie Paxman, and quite a few guys that I came up with through the belts. They run their own schools and they also left GB. I'm cool with those guys. So, it is what it is. It's just a changeover.
Yeah.
The thing for us now is it's just like everything's always in flux, and this Like, it could have either been a negative thing for us, a positive thing for us, and it's my job and everybody else's job at Total to make it the most positive thing possible.
Sure.
And I believe we've done that. I really do believe we've done that. We've got our own, very much our own essence now. The club is just about the club itself. You know, we're not attached to any broader team, and we never will be attached to any other team. So it's not like we're going to join another big team like there's other teams called Alliance and check that out. Whoever, we're never going to do that. The club is just about the people within the club, and you could change the name Total to whatever you want, and it wouldn't change the club itself. The club is about the people, you know, and that's what it's all about for us.
Perfect. Sounds good. What was it like for you starting to coach then? Were you quite a natural coach? Did you find it difficult? Did you like teaching kids? Did you enjoy teaching adults? And how's your kind of coaching progressed as you've gone from kind of, you know, assisting classes to then taking your own classes, running privates, to obviously now operating the school?
Yeah, I would say hopefully I got better at coaching. Hopefully I got better. At first I found it very daunting. I remember going back to when I said I assisted those kids' classes. That's the first time I ever coached. We were doing like the warm-up beginning, and I remember just looking up, and every kid's eyes was like that. And it felt very intense. And then you get used to it over time, and then you go from like feeling pressure to just becoming a lot more relaxed with it as well. Hopefully I've got better at coaching. The thing that definitely happens over time is when you teach, the more you teach techniques, the better you get at it. So what I mean by that is individual techniques. So let's say I've taught a triangle. This is my first time teaching a triangle. I probably, one, miss loads of details, but number two, I miss loads of things that most people do wrong. Once you've taught a triangle 100 times, the thing that you do get more of is expecting or understanding what people are normally going to do wrong.
Yeah. So
then you can put a little bit more time and focus into saying the common pitfalls that most people might make a mistake with. So that makes things a little bit more efficient. I enjoy it because I've been doing it for quite a while now. I enjoy teaching the advanced class, where it's the advanced kids or advanced adults, because you can push them more technically. Hopefully, they've got a basis of knowledge, and for sure they've got a basis of knowledge from coming up through the beginners course.
Yeah.
So that means they can push things more technically. You can go in a little bit more depth. Hopefully, you can try and build an understanding of it. Those are the people that get really good at jiu-jitsu. The people that understand what they're doing. The reason that is jiu-jitsu is very complex, sort of like chess. So if you understand, if I just taught you in parrot fashion, you would get good. You would, if you were really good at just spotting patterns and just doing what you're told to do, you'd get good, but you'd hit a limit. And that limit would be when something happens that you don't already, that you haven't already been taught the answer to. When something a little bit unpredictable or unorthodox or something happens.
An anomaly. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And then you've got no way to deal with that situation. Whereas if you understand concepts, if you understand why you're doing something, you can solve the problem as you go along. And that's the part I enjoy about jiu-jitsu as well, that problem-solving element. So hopefully I get to pass that on as much as possible. It requires extended focus. That's the difficult part, is to understand concepts and to understand why you're doing a technique. You will have to literally watch and think about what the instructors are saying more, and you have to ask them. And then when you're practicing, you'll have to actually try and make it work when you're practicing the moves, and then you'll have to ask for feedback from the instructor. So it requires more engagement, one, when you're practicing moves, but number two, actually when you're watching it.
Sure.
Some people struggle with that, but I'm a big believer in teaching that way, and then again, that natural fading off system will happen with the people that can't pay attention or don't want to push themselves that extra. They'll just hit a limit, and that's completely fine. But people that want to push themselves more and want to try and understand it, they'll naturally excel. And that's what the basis of Total is. We believe in being the absolute best version if you possibly can. And if you can't get to that next stage, that's fine. But we're not gonna give you the belt just because we like you.
Yeah, sure.
The fact that, like, if you just are a tough guy and you come up to training every time and you try your best with your techniques, but you really struggle to get any better, you're not getting a black belt. But you can train as much as you want.
You've hit your ceiling.
You've hit your ceiling for now, and I believe that you could break through if you choose to actually engage with what you're doing. On the drive home, you just go, "Oh, that was a good session. I'm shattered. I'm sweating."
Yeah.
Or on the drive home, you're thinking, "Flipping heck, how did the arm bar me?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're thinking like that, you're going to get better and better. If you're not, keep training, and if you push yourself to that next level, you can do it. However, you're not going to get a black belt till then. You're not going to get a black belt even if you've been training 50 years. You know, it doesn't make a difference to us. I don't believe in giving up somebody a black belt just because they're the best. they're the best version of themselves.
Sure.
Right? I know that sounds harsh, but I believe them getting the black belt because they are actually deserve a black belt. And also, who's to say what the best version of themselves is? That's sort of arrogant. I never really liked that because you're sort of saying, yeah, I think that's the best that person can get. Well, why? They've got a functioning brain. You know what I mean? They're not incapable of improving. It's just that right now they've hit a ceiling for whatever reason. It's our job to communicate that to them.
Yeah.
To try and motivate themselves to push through that and go on to the next level. Not to just be like, yeah, you've just been cursed forever. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Competition then. So obviously, as I said at the start, you've medalled, you've got world championships, British championships 8 times, I think it was. What's the biggest mental shift that you had to kind of go onto a world level?
That's a good question. I mean, I'll go back to when I did do that. And I was a good blue belt towards the end when I started training properly, training full time. And I finally started winning some competitions. And then I was winning much more local stuff. And then I went to the Europeans. So that's there's 4 major international competitions. They're called the Grand Slam in jiu-jitsu. So it works like tennis, Wimbledon, French Open, whatever it is. So they're called the European Championships. Well, actually, it's called the European Open. The PANs, the Brazilian Nationals, and the Worlds. And anybody from any country can do all 4 of those. They need to change their names, really, because it works like the Grand Slam system does in tennis, in that anybody can do all 4 of them.
Okay. The
pinnacle being the Worlds. Yeah. They all 4 considered Grand Slam. So I went to the European Championships in 2014. I won my first fight and then lost my second fight. And they were both absolutely the toughest fights I'd had. And I was like, flipping it, I am nowhere near. And I really started to doubt myself there. No, I didn't realise what had happened. And this is why you can't be too negative on yourself. But what basically happened is the guy that I beat first round, he'd won the previous belt the year before at the Europeans, so he was really good. And he went on to actually be an unbelievable black belt. The guy that I lost to second round, he won the whole thing. Right. In the category of 110 people. And he went on to be a really good black belt. I know who both of those guys are to this day.
Sure.
I see them in competitions. So I was very negative on myself. And the guy that got silver in that division, by the way, I beat 2 months later by submission. Yeah. So I was very negative on myself. And that's why you can't, every round, every competition is very small sample size. So you can't really tell how good or bad you are. So it's never really worth being negative on yourself. But I didn't think I could take that step up to the next level. And then I was doing better and better with the regional competitions. I think I won the British Open. And Victor was like, you should do it. He's always pushing me to do the World Championships. And being like, yeah, you should do it. And I was very against it because I just didn't think I was anywhere near good enough. And then eventually I listened to him and I was thankful that he said that because then I did go to the World Championships. And I was just like, just don't lose first round. Do not lose first round. And because there's 90 people in the division. And they're all the best, by the way. The thing about the World Championships with the lower belts, anybody can enter. A black belt's going to qualify, but anybody can enter. But again, there's an actual filtering system. Nobody is going to come from Brazil to the US without already being good. Sure. Nobody's going to come from France, Turkmenistan, Australia, wherever they're coming from, to the US to the World Championships if they're not already good. They will already be winning stuff in their country for them to even attempt that. If they're losing first round of the Nottingham Open, they ain't in the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. They'll already be guys that win in the British Open. They'll be already guys that win in all the big stuff. And then they'll build it up to that European and world level. So those 90 guys in my division, or 100 people or whatever it is, they're already really good. If there is a couple of local people, they're gone first round. Right? And then you've got all the really, really good people. So just don't lose first round. And I won my first fight. I was like, okay, I've not lost first round. And I'd seen the brackets the night before. And the 4th round was the guy that got double gold at the PANs. So at the time, that was the second biggest one. Yeah. And that's weight and absolute. So he was the number 1 purple belt in the world by miles. Big famous team in the US, number 1 blue belt. And then I was like, he's the 4th round fight. Anyway, don't even think about that. Just don't lose first round. Won my first one. Won my second one. Won my third one. And then the 4th round I was up against him. But at that point, I was feeling pretty good. I was like, I've won 3 fights. Everything's gravy from here on out, So I fought him and then I beat him. And I just could not believe it. And then I won another one. And then I got another one, won the quarters. And then I got into the semis and then I lost in the semis. But it meant that I got a bronze medal. And at the time, I remember hearing about one guy from Britain getting a medal, the year before. And that was it. Yeah. And I think that year it was me and one other guy got a medal from Britain at the World. So it was I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely blown away. So after then, that's what started to give me confidence. And I started to perceive myself differently.
Sure.
You know, so it was just one breakout performance. And often that's the way it works. You can get better and better and better and better. But you could be by miles the best person in the world, but you sort of need a breakout performance. And then your mentality of how you perceive yourself switches, and other people's switches as well. Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. What kind of fighter are you then, do you think? Are you an aggressive fighter? Are you defensive? Does it depend on who you're competing against? Are you quite versatile? Can you do a little bit of both?
You know what? I would say early on, like blue and purple, I was very, very tactical.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sort of went away from that when I was like brown belt, to my detriment, I feel like, because I started to think to myself that, I don't know, I sometimes listen to people saying, oh, you know, it's just about the style or about how you fight. You've got to go out and submit people, you've got to, you know, all this sort of stuff. But so I started like thinking like that more, and I probably even carried that through to black belt. And maybe it meant overall I got better. It probably did, and maybe more well-rounded. But I think I should have sort of kept more of my original style, just winning fights basically, by any means. You know what I mean? Just winning fights, and because in any other sport or in anything else, you know, nobody cares. You know, my dad used to, and I didn't listen to him. My dad used to say, you know, just flipping get gold. When your name's written down on who won, it will just say Sean Coates. They won't say he was boring, he was defensive. He won't say anything like that.
Yeah.
They'll just say he got gold. And he's right, I should have listened to him more there. Because nobody cares really. You know, you can, yeah, it's great to be exciting fighter, and there's some people that are exciting, but and people know them. But the only reason people know them is because they're good as well.
Yeah.
If you're the most exciting guy, but you're just terrible, nobody cares. If you're a boring guy, but you win everything, well, people will care about that as well. And also, like, I'm not doing it because people care anyway. I was doing it because I wanted to win jiu-jitsu competitions and wanted to, you know, challenge myself. So that's the thing that I should have focused on. So I shouldn't have fought my natural style, really, which was a bit more tactical. And if I've got any advantage, it's not like I was ever the strongest guy, the fastest guy, the most flexible guy by any means at all. I was often the least of those things in my division. But my advantage would perhaps be being able to out-tactic somebody else, being able to use the correct techniques at the correct time to make it a disproportionate position that puts me in favour, you know. So I should have stuck with that a bit more. You know, and that's what I would say to anybody now, like anybody that I coach, is if you're doing a competition, just win the fight. First, in fact, before then, if you're nervous about doing competition, just do the competition. That's a win. Don't worry about flipping winning any fun at all. Yeah. Like, you know, this brown belt, I said that to you recently. If you're nervous about competing, step one is just compete. Yeah. If you step on those mats, you've done good. Get tapped in one skin, but you've just done good. And then from there, you can start to build up a level. You know, the thing about competitions is your results don't exactly correlate with how good you are at jiu-jitsu. It's a separate skill set. There's overlap there. You can be the best guy in the gym, but lose in competition. You've got to get the skill of being able to compete as well. And that only is going to happen with experience. And then over time, you can build yourself up. But I'd just say, if you prefer guard, if you prefer passing, if you prefer takedowns, if you prefer slowing down the pace, if you prefer the most exciting highlight reel finishes, it doesn't really matter. Just stick with whatever suits you. Commit to that, and don't be put off by the noise around you. You know what I mean?
Perfect. Just last one then on like your competition days. Was there a loss that kind of taught you more than any win? You think that was there one that really stands out in your mind that you were like, right, and it was a bit of either a light bulb moment or a bit of a fuck, like that shouldn't have happened, or something that really stands out in terms of that?
That's a really good question. I've got two spring to mind. So number one, just the most painful one I've had, full stop. I don't know if this taught me, this teach me as much, but I'll tell you the most painful one was ADCC trials. So ADCC is like the Olympics of jiu-jitsu. There's a trial, you have trials, it happens once every 2 years, and it's no gate. And I got to this is when I was a brown belt, I got to the final of the trials, so like an insane division, the European and African trials. And then I got to the final against the guy who was actually current black belt world heavyweight champion. Right. So the number one guy in the world, basically. Yeah. Heavyweight, which is the weight division above me. He's called Adam Wazinski, a Polish guy. Really good. And I got to the final against him. He would have been the best person I've ever beaten. And also, he was a black belt, I was a brown belt. And also, it was to go to the Olympics for grappling. And I was doing well in the first few sequences of the fight, and a couple of minutes in, we have a few good exchanges, and I get deep on a submission, or semi-deep on a submission, and I've got his leg trapped in a heel-up position. And just as I'm slipping it on, you know, in my mind, he's tapping. I've gone to ADCC. Adam Wazinski, you know what I mean? And my hand's been raised, and it slipped off. I clung on, so I squeezed on when actually I should transition to do a thing. Because in my mind, I was already there. I sort of clung on, and he moved on to the next thing. And that was the biggest opportunity I had in the fight. And then over time, I think after this, he grinds me down, gets a position, and then beat me. But it was so painful because I was so close to winning. And for days, I was like, on the drive home, I was driving back, I got back from the airport. I must have been driving for about 4 hours, and in my mind, I was just running over it and over and over again, to the point where I was like, in my mind, I'd won the fight, and I was thinking, so God, if I'd have won that fight, I'd now be here, I'd now be in ADCC. I was just through it. And I had to sort of snap myself out and say, you've not won, Sean. This is not reality. You know what I mean? And it was difficult for me because I kept mentally rehearsing it. The thing that taught me is just the moment it's happened, there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? You can't go backwards. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you just can't, you know. There's no use in torturing yourself. You just got to learn from it and move on as soon as possible. And the other thing that I try to learn from it is trying to see things neutrally, trying to see things from the outside perspective. And this is the one that I really learned the most from. The problem is it took me ages to learn from. When I was brown belt, I fought the Europeans against this really good guy called Ronaldo Jr., a Brazilian guy. And I had a fight with him, and I lost on points, and I didn't watch the fight. For me, I was like, oh God, I got destroyed. I was like, I did so bad there. I got that feeling I talked about before where I just felt like I wasn't good enough to compete there. And I was so put off by it. And it put me in this funk at brown belt for about a year and a half where I was just convinced I wasn't good enough. All my performances after that were nervy. I was like too tense. I was like forcing things. I was preventing myself doing techniques because I was so worried about what the person would do to me. And actually, I never got out of into a black belt, to be honest, where I felt the pressure was off. So I was like a new black belt. I was fighting amazing guys. I actually did better at black belt than I did at brown belt, which doesn't make sense. The standard's higher. And then like 3 years later, so this is in lockdown, I was like sat on my couch back there, just bored. I thought, oh, you know what, I'll watch the fight. And I watched the fight with me and the Ronaldo guy. And I fought pretty well. It was a good fight. It was a really back and forth. Like I get some score, like he beats me on points, but I'm not getting dominated, I'm pushing the pace. Yeah, overall he does better than me. But it's a decent fight. And I just thought to myself, man, I wish I watched this like 3 years ago. I've tortured myself for about a year and a half thinking that I wasn't good enough. I just wish I'd watched that. So the big lesson I got from there is really just being as neutral as possible about things.
Sure.
And that's the thing that I would say is competition. Flipping, just training, maybe life in general, is really just trying to see things in the most neutral way possible. If I was teaching somebody or if I was designing a robot to be good at jiu-jitsu, I would just put them into a fight. If they lose, I'd come back, correct that thing and do it again. Come back, correct that thing and do it again. And that's how sparring, that's how competition, that's how everything should be. Rather than bringing some sort of emotional attachment, saying to myself, I am not good enough, I am not on this level. Complete waste of time. It's ridiculous. What does that even mean? Like, I lost a fight. That doesn't determine the whole rest of the time I'm fighting. That doesn't mean I'm incapable of improving. That doesn't even determine what level I'm at right then. Never mind what level I can get to. So I would say as soon as possible, remove that emotional attachment. If you can be the sort of person that trains or spars or competes or does whatever and just goes in there, makes a mistake, come back to correct it, moves in there, you will get good. You can repeat that cycle over again, rather than just taking that ego hit of feeling not good enough and like, oh, I failed at this one, it's painful, so I'm going to shy away from that. You know, oh, I'm going to convince myself of this. No, it's just information. Go in there, do it, come back. Nobody cares about that loss. Nobody else remembers that fight apart from me. Probably the guy that beat me doesn't remember that apart from me. You know, so these things don't last, but they can be very useful, but only if you're willing to take on that information in the most neutral way possible. So that's the thing that I've learned from the most, is trying to be neutral about your results. Any loss does not, you know, what's that they say in stocks? It's like past performance doesn't determine future performance. You know what I mean? So just because I lost the past, or just because I was this level in the past, doesn't determine anything for the future. I was also a white belt once. Hopefully I'm better than that then, better than that now.
Yeah.
So don't get stuck in that. Don't have an identity or don't see your identity as the level you're at currently, because that's constantly in flux. So you're just trying to take the information, improve from it, and grow.
Perfect. Conversely, then, what was the best win? You think the one that really stuck
Best
out and went,
win.
yeah, that was a good one.
Well, it's, I think the best win is the most random thing ever. So I'd already gone full time in jiu-jitsu. I was already training loads and I'd already gone to Brazil. I said I think I'd won one local competition at white belt. I'd never won anything at blue belt. But I was getting better and better at the gym. I'd lost those 6 in a row. I got some bronze medals. So but I'd never actually won one. And then I came back from Brazil. I was already like a pretty good blue belt. And then I fought in the Nottingham Open. And in my weight division, I got to the semis. And then I lost. Again. So I got bronze again. And then I fought in the absolute, got to the semis. Got to the finals. And I fought the guy in the final that I'd lost to in the semis. Lost to in the weight division before. Final in the absolute. And I got my foot lock. And I pulled it up. And he tapped. And that moment, to this day, genuinely, is the best I've ever felt. I was on the verge of crying. Like, it was just because it's funny because it's not a competition that's like anywhere near like the most prestigious that I've had or like anything, or it's a crazy one, but it just meant so much to me, and it was really a recognition of the hard work that I've been putting in. So that was the high point. The other one I will say is when Arian, who's my student, who was on the other week, when he won gold at Europeans, that was also unbelievable, because like all the guys have been doing better and better for the past couple of years, but none of them had quite got gold at a major. So we went from like being national level winning, then international level, like those Grand Slam tournaments, medaling, but none of them had actually broken that threshold and won a major international competition. So when he won that was equal from that was an equal feeling from my best competition for sure.
Awesome. I asked Irian this as well, actually, but I asked him what his training schedule was like when he was like on the run up to a competition. So from you as a competitor and as a coach to these guys that are now winning kind of, golds, and they're competing at a really high level, what's your kind of regime for them, I suppose? Do you track their diet? Do you track their training? Do you track everything in terms of that? Or do you kind of go, they've got it, it's all right? Like, how much of a hand do you have in?
Completely depends. I mean, I won't do really anything diet-wise unless they're just generally discussing ideas or discussing what weight division they should be in. But I think they should be more like a nutritionist. We'll discuss general ideas. If somebody's just been eating pizza every night, obviously. But like general ideas, but I won't go into ultra-specific stuff. Maybe as I say, weight division. As a training schedule, it depends on the person. It really depends on the person. Even the sort of person, sometimes you would need to pull him back a little bit, overtrain. Other people need to kick up the ball and need to be training more. If somebody's just trained as a hobby, in fact, it doesn't really matter. The thing that I would say is everyone should be training absolutely as much as possible that they can sustainably do. Right? So if you if you work a full-time job and you train a couple of nights a week, and that's the most you could sustainably do for your life balance. You've got kids, you've got to do a job, sweet. Stick with that and do that sustainably. Don't try and go to 5 times a week. You're going to have arguments at home.
Burn out.
You get demotivated. Then don't do that. If it's your job, that amount should be way more. So if it's his job, like Kyle, Barbara, all these, Jada, Oscar, Andy, all these guys that are full-time competitors, Matty, Total, it's their job. So the sustainability, they should train as much as they possibly can sustainably. The difference, I would say, is you don't have to look forward to it. I would say the vast majority of the time, you should be looking forward to training. You should just be doing it anyway. It's your job. Like, a firefighter doesn't go in every day feeling like, I'm buzzing to go firefighting, or an office work, or whoever it is, but you just do it anyway. So that's what it should be like. Some people need to be pulled back a little bit, like Arian's one of those, maybe Jada's one of those as well, where they're training, I would say, like loads anyway. Some people need a bit more kick up the butt, but you should always be on that limit where at the end of the week, well, let's say if it's a Saturday, you should be like, I could not do another productive session. I literally could not do another productive session. And then you rest and recover enough that on Monday, you're back to some level of productivity, Because the other thing about jiu-jitsu is, like, the more you train, it's not linear. It's not like, I train 2 sessions a week, I get this good. I train 4 sessions, I train 8, I train 16. It doesn't just double. What happens is it sort of plateaus out. And those gains be more incremental. So a person that trains 20 hours a week won't improve twice as fast as a person that trains 10 hours a week. Okay? However, at elite level competition, those marginal gains do matter. So you should still be training 20 hours a week. You know, let's say you only get 10% back, well, 10% is a significant amount. And all the way up to the point where you get diminishing returns. Now, people's threshold for diminishing returns is massively varied.
Yeah.
One, there's a genetic element, how fast can they recover. Number two, there's a lifestyle element, like what are you sleeping enough, are you eating enough food, what other things do you have stressing you out. And number three, this is the main factor, there's a mentality element. So some people will naturally keep themselves or will be inclined to push themselves beyond the brink of productivity. So like if they just trained as much as possible, like let's say if Ewan didn't have it, never taught jiu-jitsu, never did anything else, he might push himself beyond that verge of productive level. So he might try and train 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Now you wait, that's way beyond productivity. You know, you're so knackered that you can't recover from the previous session anywhere near, and you're grinding yourself down, you're flopping around on the mats, right? Other people, and this is most people, I will say, get nowhere near that. So they get fatigued or they feel tired on day two, and then they think, oh, they need a day off. Actually, no, it shouldn't be like that. It should be really, really tired. It should be really hard to train at that level. If it's your job, if it's your job, it should be super, super difficult. The reason it should be super, super difficult is that's why most people can't do it. That's why most people aren't the best in the world.
Yeah.
So by definition, it should be really difficult. And people are expecting themselves to be able to have quality, to feel fresh every session. No, you should feel fresh some sessions. You should feel okay most sessions. You should feel pretty tired some sessions. And then when you feel absolutely obliterated to the point where, man, I just can't move around, I'm just absolutely shattered, like I can't even do anything, right? Then you need to rest. But that threshold is way further down than people think. And they think, here's what that threshold isn't. That threshold isn't, I am doing worse than normal, so therefore I should have some time off. No, right? Because that should happen towards the end of the weekend. That should happen when you're getting more tired anyway. The answer to that is you should be doing something different. You should be just working on your defense. If I'm normally beating a person, I'm training like, let's say this guy trains twice a week. I train twice a day. It's Friday night. I'm shattered. I've trained 10 times. He's trained twice. He's fresher than me. Right? He's just a casual guy. I normally beat this guy. I feel bad getting tapped by a casual guy. Well, feel bad. That's okay. That's not going to kill you. You know what I mean? Get tapped by him. Or practice your defense. Practice being knackered. There's going to be a point when you are in a competition, you are knackered. You know, jiu-jitsu is meant to be a self-defense martial art. Flipping defend yourself. That's the best. That's the best way to learn it. You know, recover as you're training. Try, or if you're going with a lower level person that you can still beat when you're knackered, well, this is going to level things out more. It's going to be an ego hit. Because you're more tired than the average person, because you've been training more than the average person, you will do less good in the short term, and that's an ego hit to you. However, by pushing through that, when you are fresh, you will have improved because of it. But if you will only train when you can tap everybody out, you ain't going to train a lot. I'll tell you that now. And you're not going to improve as much as everybody else. So you need to be willing to train even when you're tired, even when the results in training aren't as good. Because over time, the results elsewhere in competition will be better.
Perfect. Awesome. We've got some questions from other people. And then we've got some short fire questions to finish off, and then I'll let you get off because I know you're a busy man. The first one is, what is one of the most underrated aspects of BJJ that's overlooked in your opinion?
That's a good question. Okay. I would say the most underrated aspect is definitely the fitness element. Because let's say I want to get in shape. I don't do anything. I work in an office. I want to get in shape. Most people will start running, or they'll start cycling, or they'll go to the gym, or whatever, right? And let's say if they're overweight, they'll try and burn calories doing that. Number one, the problem with that is it's really boring.
Yeah.
Right? So you're just thinking, you're just doing it to do it. You're like a machine. You know, if you weren't burning calories, you wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you weren't losing weight, you wouldn't be doing it. Because you go on that treadmill, you're saying, right, 15 minutes, I'm doing this for 15 minutes. This is most people. Some people love running and they get relaxed from doing it. But most people will just do that as, I need to exercise, so I will do this.
Yeah.
The great thing about jiu-jitsu is, one, it's enjoyable and it's challenging, it's difficult. And it's certainly something that I would do without there being any exercise element. Number two, most of the time you're not really thinking about the exercise element. Your brain's so occupied, you're thinking, this guy's going to pass my guard or choke me out or do whatever, that you're exercising incidentally. The exercise is actually a side effect from it. Number two, you're more likely to come back to jiu-jitsu because, as I say, there's a mental challenge, there's an improvement part of it, there's a community element that, again, you're probably not going to have if you're just on a treadmill, that's going to keep you coming back to it. And final thing I'll say is, it's way harder than just jogging or incline walking up a treadmill. Your whole body's working out. It's properly intense. The amount of calories you burn in a session is way more. It's just way more because it's such hard work. So it's a way of getting fit, but without sort of the torturous element. And also, like, if you think about it long term, do you just want to get fit and be in a little bit of better shape and lose a few pounds just for summer, then you go back to doing what you're doing before?
Yeah.
Which I can guarantee, if you give me a selection of people, give me 100 people that dieted 10 years ago, just like a random person that just dieted 10 years ago and went on the treadmill, show me what they look like now and show me what they've looked like for the past 10 years. Probably 99% of them are going to look the same way they did originally. Maybe they got in a bit better shape, then they went back to it. Show me a group of people that have been training jiu-jitsu for those past 10 years and they're just going to be in better shape. Because it's not just, they are not doing a diet, they are not trying to get in shape. They are people who do jiu-jitsu, that's their identity and their lifestyle. So I think that's massively underrated. I would probably be like, I've got a tendency to just gain weight like quickly. I'm not a naturally like slimmer guy at all. If I'm injured, I have a couple of months off. I'm naturally hungry. I'm naturally always a chubby kid. But jiu-jitsu just like helps me stay fitter and healthier. So I think that's the most underrated part of it.
Perfect. What's one piece of advice that you give a brand new white belt?
That's a good question. That is a good question. There's almost too much advice. What the piece of advice, a brand new white belt, I would say.
Say a couple of weeks in. Hasn't completed
a couple of weeks
yet.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. I would say train think about how much you could 100% guaranteed, if I give you £1 billion, what is the amount that you can 100% guaranteed train each week, right? Not what is the absolute most you could train each week. What is the actual amount that you could guaranteed train every week? Let's say that's 2 times. Let's say that's 3 times, whatever it is. Do that amount for the next 6 months, no matter what. So if you do that, you have done good. If you just show up to training, you've done good. I don't care how you're doing that session, you've done good. If you're tired one day, you just don't feel like it, train anyway. If you're injured and need to have a session off, have a session off. If you got to work, have a session off. Then the next week, train that same amount and get back on the horse. Don't try and go from one extreme to the other. Don't go from like training, I had to have 2 weeks off, right? So then I'm going down here. So I've got to do 5 sessions the next week. No, just get back on that path. You're trying to do as many weeks as possible where you do that number of sessions. So if it's 2 sessions, do as many weeks as possible where you do 2 sessions and you've done good. And then look back in 6 months' time and think, flipping heck, so you'll see how far you've come. And also, the other thing is, the actual reality of doing that is you'll forge a habit. So you won't need to be motivated to train because you'll have an actual habit. And that's what will keep you going, the habit.
Excellent. Quick fire questions then. Minimal thought, maximum quickness. Any grappler in history or martial artist or anyone you could fight, dead or alive?
I'd probably choose dead. Next one.
Who's
Who's dead? Because that's probably going to be easy for me. I would say, I don't even know. Bruce Lee coming to mind. Bruce Lee, I'll stick with Bruce Lee.
Nice one. The ultimate cheat meal for you after you've done a competition or you just laxed off a little bit?
See, I'm pretty hungry right now, so my man's loads of stuff. Pizza, sushi. I'll go burrito. I like Mexican.
Burrito. Nice. Any embarrassing moments on the mat?
Yeah, loads. Yeah. I'm tempted to not say them. Oh, man.
Okay.
Like, so many ones. So many. I mean, the most obvious one would be flatulence. That's going to happen to you at some point, Danny. It's not happened, but it is coming, my man. Or maybe it has happened, but at some point you will not be able to get away with it. Flatulence happens, that's what I'm saying.
Make sure it's in north-south position, I'll make sure. If you weren't doing BJJ, what do you think you'd be doing?
you know what? In reality, some rubbish, really boring job.
Yeah.
I was just being like stuck. I think so. That's the path I was going down before I switched. So, I was doing a degree when I originally went to university before I quit for jiu-jitsu. I was doing a degree in theoretical physics, but I don't think I'd be good enough to be a theoretical physicist. So I'd probably end up using this in some sort of maths analyst,
Numbers.
maybe not even accountancy, like just some numbers-based computer job.
Yeah.
I don't know. So thank God for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, right decision. And last one, what is something people don't know about you outside of jiu-jitsu?
Outside of jiu-jitsu? Okay, that's a good one. I don't know.
It's like a first date now. I'm just trying to find out everything about you.
Yeah, I mean, the surprising ones is that I'm quarter Somalian.
Oh, okay.
You probably wouldn't guess that. And they say,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, outside jiu-jitsu, if you do jiu-jitsu with me, you'd seen that I'm missing a toe already. If you don't jiu-jitsu with me, you probably haven't seen that.
Yeah.
So I always say I got 9.5. You know what I mean? I'm not rounded down to 9. I've got 9.5 toes.
All right, cool. All right, perfect.
So I'm missing a bit of a toe and a quarter Somali. So there you go.
There we go. There's 2 for me. All right, perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Sean. That's really interesting. Yeah, really, really good. Some insights there for anyone, from competitor level all the way up to, or all the way down, to kind of beginner level as well. So yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, awesome. I'll see you at Nottingham soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers for having me down. I appreciate coming on. And yeah, I've listened to this and just good to see it build up and just hope it keeps building up as well.
It's a good
See you on the mat soon.
Yeah, definitely.